E-Committee for Computerization of the High Court of Karnataka, Judicial Process Re-Engineering Committee, High Court of Karnataka, and State Court Management Systems Committee, High Court of Karnataka. Currently, Justice Rammohan Reddy sir is serving as a member to Krishna Water Dispute Tribunal, New Delhi. As head of Judicial Process of Re-Engineering Committee, JPR, Justice was instrumental in bringing about changes to the civil and criminal rules of practice. Justice had also recommended for changes in the court procedure in tune with the developing technologies. Justice sir, you are indeed true epitome of 7 lamps of advocacy. Adjudicated all type of litigations covering all subjects of law. Justice sir, we all know that you command supreme expertise in English and legal language. Honorable Justice sir, we are indeed humbled by your acceptance to be the resource person to speak on the communication skill and its significance in legal profession. On behalf of KSLU and Bangalore Law Wings Education Society's Bangalore Law College, I request your good self to deliver your expertise lecture. It's over to you, sir.
Thank you, Director Shiv Prasad. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. Thank you. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Mr. Ishwar Bhatt, Mr. Shiv Prasad, Director, Father Emmanuel, Professor Bolla, my good friend, Mr. Harish, Mr. Venkat Rao, Professor Venkat Rao, another good friend of mine, all the participants today, students, and those in the legal fraternity. I'm quite, I don't know, the kind of accolades that's given to me. I do not know whether I deserve it at this point of time, but nevertheless, there have been some significant work that was done, both as a lawyer and as a judge, while also holding offices entrusted to me with confidence by my predecessor Chief Justices of the High Court, as well as the Chief Justice of India in nominating me as members of the National E-Committee, as well as the National Legal Services Authority. Well, to start the very essence of this today's program of communication that is necessary, I guess all of us, by experience, when I mean experience, I'm talking of experience at home, experience at school, college, experiences with our peers, our professors, our guides. We all have understood that communication is the in thing for maintaining human relationships. It is fundamental to the existence of the human, as well as, organizational levels. What exactly is communication? Every student must understand that it is a process of creating and sharing ideas. Just now we heard the Honorable Vice Chancellor, how eloquently he mentioned about the skills necessary to be acquired, the methodology of acquiring these skills, and the abilities of each individual by which they can transform themselves into some wonderful human beings who could contribute to this great country of ours. And not just the country, I will extend it to the world over. We are a changing nation today. We are not what we were 60 years ago. We have definitely crossed a certain line. And therefore, the students, I'm not talking of only law students, I'm talking of every student in every field of activity who has to change the attitude. What is the change in attitude that I'm trying to put forth? Three important things. You must have confidence in yourself. You must have the aptitude. You must have competence. And not just these, you must be sincere to yourself. You must be honest to yourself. And you must have absolute integrity. If students are encouraged to have these qualities, I tell you, they can become wonderful judges, they can become wonderful lawyers, they can become wonderful administrators. And finally, even the best of politicians. In today's scenario, we have a number of politicians who have been in the legal profession and other professions as well. But my sincere request is that we should strive to increase this tribe of politicians who have a background of law with them. Background of law helps in every sphere of activity. It helps curtail the person from committing certain mistakes in law. So knowledge of law should be not focused just for the purpose of carrying on a profession, but to become better human beings. That is the knowledge of law. So how do you communicate this? Communication, as I said, is the very fundamental of all things for human existence. It's creating and sharing ideas. Today, whatever I am saying is just another bit of communication, of sharing of my ideas, which I have over a period of time by experience gained. I come down to the basics. As a child, what do we do? How do we communicate with our parents, with our siblings? As a child, all of you have experienced how you do it. Sometimes we are aggressive. Sometimes we are persuasive. Sometimes we are very submissive, where you ask your parents for something that is beyond the very parents' capacity economically. So what do? We become very submissive. We try to persuade them. We are not aggressive. When do we become aggressive? When things change. When there is an aggressor somewhere. So what I want to tell you is, these are all communications. These are communications by verbal. The other communication is by showing your expression. What are your expressions? You may give a smile. You know, when you give a smile, what happens? 50% of whatever is against you, inimical against you, is reduced. The person immediately becomes a friend with you. The smile makes it all. That's the kind of expression. We have yet another expression. That is the sobbing expression. Why do we sob? Emotion. This is yet another expression, emotion. See, this emotion, when I said, I did not mean just the childhood or the adulthood or the college or the classes that we have or the teachers that we have. It extends itself into the very life structure. How do you deal with your professors? How do you deal with your peers? How do you deal with your friends? To make a friend is very difficult because your communication skills have to be very eloquent. But to make an enemy is just within a second, either by your expression or verbal expression or something in writing. Now we all know, with the changes to the Evidence Act, Section 66 of the IPC, anything said which is abusive is a crime. So verbal, you got to be very careful. I know a court officer of mine, the moment I raised my right eyebrow, the court officer would know what exactly I wanted. There was another court officer, if I just removed my spectacles and kept it down, he or she would know what exactly I want. This is another way of communication. Communication without even having to say anything. We have with us Sunita H. Singh. Good morning. She was a wonderful lawyer who appeared before me. She has great communication skills. Since I saw her right now, I should also say thanks to her because I learned a lot. I'm a good listener, I'm a good thinker, and I'm also a good viewer. I view everything. Somebody once told me when I was maybe 22 or 23, I was in my final year of law, and I was asked to take my IAS exam. Though my parents, you see, those days, they never believed that law would do me any good. Those days, the only things that were there were either I become an engineer or a doctor, or I become an IAS officer. And not in the military because I was too short for the military. I was just 5'4", and that wasn't sufficient, though I loved to be in the NDA. Now, you see, what happened was, in all these things, there were many incidents in our life. See, our life is just making of a history of every event that happens in your life. These are all communications. There's communication at every level. Right from every experience, you get a communication. I remember a day when my father asked me to go and get the revenue records because we are from the landed gentry. I had come out of it and I had started to do something for myself to be in the profession of law. So my father asked me and said, look, now that you're a lawyer, why don't you go and get your revenue records straight? So I went to a Tahsildar. And then I made an application for copies of the revenue records. I was very submissive. I wasn't arrogant just because I was a lawyer and I had a black coat on and a tie there, black tie. And very submissively, I requested for a copy of my record of rights. It's called the RR. The Tahsildar asked me to go to another gentleman who was sitting outside his office. And I gave the application to him. And then I inquired as to when I should come and receive the application. You know, to my surprise, what he did? He put his fingers into my pocket and removed 20 rupees, which was in my front pocket in the front, which was visible. It was a transparent shirt. What was the communication that I received? Horrendous. Nothing short of it. Could I ever believe anybody could do this to a lawyer? Forget a lawyer, even a citizen of this country. That's another way of communication. So what transpired in my mind? There was an aberration. It took me years to get out of it. This is another experience of mine, which I'm trying to share with you as by way of communication. Now, we'll come back to the real part of it. What is the real part of it? What does the Constitution say? We have to achieve the ideals, social, economical, political. This is the framework of our Constitution. How are you going to achieve all this? If you do not have communication skills, what are you going to do? What do you want? You just want to be another person? Somebody told me once, if you've got to be somebody, you should be an exception. Otherwise, you will be saying, I also ran in the race. That's not sufficient. I had Professor Bashir Hussain as our principal in the Bangalore Law College. He used to teach us the first and foremost thing was, he would tell me, or he would tell most of us in our class, we had about 54 and odd people, 54 and odd students. We had classes at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, end by 9:30. Because most of the faculty were lawyers, practicing lawyers. Bashir Ahmed, my professor then, who would take international law for us as a subject, he would tell us, look here, you guys after 9:30, what are you going to do? So in unison, all of us said, we were in the first year of law college, we said we go to a morning show. The morning show starts at 10:30. He was aghast. I'm trying to tell this to Father Emmanuel, who's here with us. This is my experience. Of course, Professor Venkatrao is also there, who headed a wonderful institution. I'm just trying to say this is what happened when students were not guided, because law was not taken seriously at all. It was later part of the first year that I understood that if I was not an exception, then I would be just another run of the mill. So how do I become an exception? Look at this communication that Professor Bashir Ahmed gave us. It stuck into my mind at least. Finally, how many of us got out of law college? 3. 3 of us passed out of law college in 1973. I was the only one who joined the profession. The other was a gold medalist who is presently in Australia. He never wanted to join the profession because he had no confidence in himself. And the last gentleman became a banker. He did his ICWA, he had done his BCom, and he had come into the law profession, so he became a banker. Now look at the situation in which we were groomed. What was the communication that was given to us? The communication was, you want to do something, do it all by yourself. Do you have the skills? Use them. You don't have them? Get them. And once you get them, sharpen them. 3 things came to my mind those days. 1, that I must possess the skill. 2, that I must give surprises to myself. And 3, which is the most important thing, was to get prepared for that surprise. The preparation that was necessary. What are all the preparations? It was not just being eloquent in Kannada, a regional language, or in English, which all of us can acquire by reading. That is not what it was. It was the legal language that was necessary. Communication without legal language will leave you nowhere, will lead to you nowhere. What you need to do is, for communications to become effective, to be of some concern, to be of something by which you can persuade a judge or persuade another colleague of yours, means that you must be adept with the laws and the analytics of laws. The analytics of law. When you're a lawyer, what is it that you see when you communicate to a judge? A lawyer comes into the court, he looks at the judge. I remember as a lawyer, when I first was asked by my senior to go and move an adjournment, I had to go to court hall number 4, Justice Bhimaya's court. Justice Bhimaya, then a wonderful judge, a great exposition of law and legalities. I went there, and then very sheepishly, peevishly, I had to move for an adjournment because I had never wanted to move an adjournment becoming a lawyer. I would always tell to myself, look here, when you go to the court, you got to argue a case. Otherwise, you don't go. So when I went there and the case was called, I just had to ask the learned judge for an adjournment. So the learned judge said, why do you need an adjournment? I said, because my senior told me to do so. Very truthful. The communication was very truthful. So the learned judge, Justice Bhimaya, said, go back to your senior and tell him that the learned judge wants him here in the court hall. This was the communication given to me. That communication had a tone in it. What was the tone? The tone was not that it was aggressive, but it was positive in his statement. When he meant it, I knew for sure he said he meant that I must bring my senior and nothing short of it. So the tone in which you speak, the tone in which you communicate something is also such an important thing. So lawyers, or any human being for that matter, if you communicate with a different tone, then what happens? It's a different ball game. I know of Justice B. Srinivasa Rao, who is no more, before whom I had many a case represented. He was a very sober judge. In fact, if somebody asked for an adjournment, he would tell us in open court, in a very subtle note, he would say, can you please come tomorrow? Look at the tone in which the learned judge would ask us. So you see, the extremes of the tone, the pleasing tone and the aggressive tone and the positive tone, these are the tones. They are all communication skills. If you go to a court of law and if you are upset with the judge, you cannot show yourself in poor light by shouting, screaming, or raising your tone, because it is not going to help. The judge is above all this. The judge is trying to measure you in the court. How do I measure? Is this guy or lady trying to, speak to the gallery? Is this lawyer really trying to say something which I have missed out? Or is the lawyer trying to show off that he knows, that he wears his knowledge on his cuff? What does he think? Generally, all judges that I have seen over the past many years, right from 1973 when I started my profession, I've seen a number of these judges come and go, but all of them were so poetic. Some of them were poetic. Some of them were really wonderful judges. Of course, there were some who were not so wonderful, because it is the perception of every individual as to what is the making of a judge. How does a judge interact with people? That's individual perceptions. But the point here is communication. If the skills are not properly tuned, then all said and done, your communication will get a 0. If there is marks from 1 to 10, you will have a 0 if you do not know how to communicate. I remember a party person who came before me, made some very wild allegations. All in the papers the next day. It was personal allegations directed at me, but it doesn't matter. We have always been taught to be resilient. We have been taught to be resilient against any such aggression in the court hall. What had to be done by me, I had done it. Then you see the courts. It was also in the papers, and then the newspapers came before me and then filed their apology by way of affidavits. It doesn't matter. The point is not that. The point is, how are you going to communicate? Is this what is necessary? When we are talking of the ideals, social, economical, and political, do we go about in courts of justice hallowing? No, we are not going to do that. This is not the skill that is necessary for a lawyer to be in practice. At the same time, I am not going to advocate to be very submissive in court. You got to be persuasive, and that's all that you need to do in court of laws. If a learned judge is not willing to accept your point of view, you must accept that the judge is also a human being, entitled to have his own version of things. He may be wrong, he may be right. Just as much as you have a right to have your perception put forth by way of communication skills, the same way the learned judge too has. What does the judge do? He normally questions you. So in communication, what happens is, the first thing is listen. Listening is the most important thing in communication. Whoever it is, if you go to a lawyer, the client is going to say so many things. And if the lawyer, he doesn't listen, then how is he going to help his client? When a lawyer comes to court and argues a matter, if the learned judge is not listening, how is he going to solve the issue before him? Take, for example, a doctor. If some patient goes to a doctor and then he tries to say something about his ill health, if the doctor is not prepared to listen, how is he going to treat his patient? I'm talking at every level. I'm talking of a student vis-a-vis a teacher. A student may have something which he is not able to understand. And if we ask the professor or the teacher as to what exactly it is, if they do not have the wherewithal to listen to the student, how is the student going to get that kind of information that he needs? So at every sphere of activity, communication, the first and most important thing in communication is to listen. I am reminded of an anecdote which I read in one of the books. A judge in the United Kingdom was very talkative. At the drop of the hat, he would talk while on the bench. So the chief judge was informed of such a talkative judge who was not prepared to listen. And then the chief judge called this judge to his chamber and said, look here, not that we have any complaint against you, but may we request you to do more of listening than the talking part of it. And then the next day, the learned judge went to the court hall, and on his table, there was a small note that was kept. And every time he looked into it, he declined to even talk in the court. Lawyers there were a little perplexed and said, how come this judge has stopped talking today? So they were inquisitive. They asked the court marshal. They said after once he retired into his chamber, they asked the court marshal, what is it that he always saw on the table and stopped talking? And you know what was written there? The Chief Justice had sent one small note saying, you are paid to listen. So the learned judge felt listening is the most important thing. Now I come to what is listening? Different kinds of listening. You may simply keep your ears open. That is not sufficient. You may be thinking of something in your mind while somebody is arguing. Listening means you got to give a hearing. Listening doesn't stop at just listening. Listening proceeds to hearing. You got to hear them out. Such an important thing of communication, hearing, not just listening. We had a whole symposium on hearing in the National Judicial Academy very recently. And we analyzed threadbare about this communication skill of listening and hearing. And finally, we said, if the lawyer or the judge is not attentive, mere listening or mere hearing makes no sense. So one has to be attentive. You know why? When a lawyer is trying to make out a point, the opposite lawyer is not sitting quiet. He too is listening, hearing, and is also attentive. He immediately makes a note of something which is against him because he'll have to clarify on that point. But to my dismay as a judge, very few of those lawyers, very few of them ever made notes. You know what they would do? The moment the lawyer said something against this client, he would jump up like a jack in the box out of the box. And they say, no, he's wrong, he's wrong. That is not communication skill. You got to wait for your opportunity. Sit down, write down, wait, think about it, and then put forth your case. I was about 2 or 3 years in the profession, sometime during 1975. We had a wonderful judge in the city civil court. He was by name Ganesh Rao. I don't know if any of you know about it. He was a wonderful civil judge. A matter had come up before him. I had to go and argue a case. I was for the defendant. My case was not taken up. However, 2 lawyers were arguing the case. 2 eminent lawyers. Very eminent in the sense they were quite seniors. They were extraordinary seniors. One lawyer said the other lawyer is arguing like the cawing of a crow. Ganesh Rao kept quiet. He didn't say anything. I was watching intently what the learned judge would say. So immediately this lawyer, the other lawyer, suddenly sprung up and he said, the other lawyer is arguing like the barking of a dog. So it went on. All animals came into the fray. Finally, Ganesh Rao was so, I guess he was a little upset. And he said, look here, you have now named all the animals amongst yourselves. Unfortunately, none of those animals are here to have their say in the matter. You see how difficult it becomes when the communication skills are not followed at all. So, you see, these small anecdotes that happen in your life, it's all experiences that you gain. So what happens is you look at this and you sharpen yourself. You say, no, I'm not supposed to do that. I will not do it. I will come to my point. I will be concise. I will be precise. These two words of being concise and precise are the best communication skills. If you are going to beat around the bush, the judge immediately knows this guy hasn't got a case. He's beating around the bush. But when you are concise and precise, you will get to the point which the learned judge will have to answer in his judgment or whatever he has to do. So the communication to the judge should be that it should be precisely stated and it should be very brief. You can't make a statement with all the punctuations leading to some 5 or 6 sentences by itself. You got to be clear. There must be clarity of thought. Communication needs clarity of thought. So, in my opinion, I'm just trying to give you my opinion as far as my experience goes. There are 4 basic styles of communication for a lawyer. One is passive. The second is the opposite, aggressive. The third is a mix of passive and aggressive. And then the fourth is assertive. You got to be assertive. And of course, all this would definitely take a shape of persuasiveness. Persuasiveness. This is what is necessary for a lawyer if he wants to be of some eminence in the years to come when he starts appearing before judges. So when you communicate, you inform, you express feelings. You know, when you are appearing for a downtrodden, economically weaker section of society in court, how do you express? Your emotions are very high. The very emotion itself will indicate that you are representing the lower and the downtrodden. Not necessary. Never put emotion into it. Emotion is the last thing that can ever happen. And then you must have imagination. If you want to communicate nicely, you must have imagination. And then you must have the power to influence. Why? Why the power to influence? I'm not just talking of the lawyer. I'm not just talking of the judge. I'm not just talking of the court. They influence the social expectations of the citizenry of this country. When a client comes to you, I have seen some lawyers, what do? They frighten him. They frighten him so much. The fellow, sometimes he may go back home and say, why did I ever go and file a case in the court? No, don't do that. They are people who have no knowledge of law, who have come to you for assistance. But please don't frighten them. Talk to them congenially. Speak to them. Listen to them. You become strong in your laws, the knowledge of laws. Put it across to them. Tell them how things can be certainly brought to a pass, where you can solve the problem, where courts can, with your assistance, solve the issues. That is communication. How else are you going to pacify a litigant who has come with his problems? You're not going to tell him, okay, you're wrong. I remember a particular time when a learned judge, a good friend of mine, was on the bench. And the moment the case came up, he said, Mr. So-and-so, you don't have a case. The lawyer was perplexed, but at the same time was aggressive. But at the same time, he recollected that if he's aggressive, he's not going to help anything. So you know what he said? In a very subtle tone, he said, "My Lord is perfectly right. But you see, my client said he didn't want my opinion, he wanted my Lord's opinion." And that was the last day the learned judge ever said in a case that nobody had a case. So you see, you cannot come to a conclusion without listening. A lawyer is paid to go and argue a case. Allow him, permit him, sit down and listen. You're paid to listen. These are the things that happen even to judges. I mean, I'm not saying that judges are above board, above everything. No, we too are fallible. We are also human beings. I'm talking as a judge. But when I was a lawyer, it was different. I never had such occasions. But I remember one incident, I will tell you. Chief Justice Chandrasekhar, as he then was, he was sitting in the bench with somebody else, I don't recollect. And we had the Advocate General, Advocate General was Mr. Yatirajal Naidu, a wonderful, famous Advocate General of those days. He had come there to the court to argue a matter. And Yatirajal Naidu's demeanor was he would sport a beautiful big mustache, larger than that of mine. He would twirl it also. You know, when he twirled it, there was some kind of aggression in the way he used to twirl his mustache. But he was a very docile Advocate General. On that day when he came, we had not noticed it, but then the Chief Justice sitting on the other side noticed and said, "Mr. Yatirajal Naidu, looks like your arguments have come down to nothing." Yatirajal Naidu immediately understood it. Of course, we understood it later, but Yatirajal Naidu understood it. And he said, he put his hand on his mustache, which was gone. He had removed it. And he said, "It will grow by the minute, my lord. The arguments will grow by the minute." See, that was the kind of humor that we had in court. That was the kind of communications that we had in court. Everything was so subtle. Everything was so beautiful. I miss those days, actually. Even in my court, of course, I didn't have that much, but I would try to add to make it a little humorous in court. Sunita was there. Sunita knows more about it. Sunita and a number of lawyers who appeared before me. So, you know, this to keep the communication line open, don't be aggressive. Don't be, just be persuasive. That is good enough. And if you can cut a joke, nothing like it. It doesn't matter. As long as, you know, it doesn't cross the Lakshman Rekha when you make a joke. Because, you see, under the Bar Council Act, I mean, the Advocates Act and the Bar Council Act, you have certain restrictions of the way you're going to conduct yourself in court, the way you're going to communicate in court. And some of those restrictions, I guess in the recent past, some amendments have been made to the rules, which further restrict the lawyers from airing their views. So, you know, the Supreme Court also said, I think in Shreya Singh's case, the Supreme Court brought about a clear distinction of what is free speech for a lawyer. What is free speech for a lawyer? The 8 tests that have to be that have to undergo this free speech. Of course, they're all reasonable restrictions, which the Supreme Court has said. I mean, once these students get into the Shreya Singh's judgment and read it for themselves, you'll be able to understand what is the limitation on free speech and how you can communicate to the judge. Because contempt of court is yet another thing. But of course, contempt of court, even the British courts, even in the UK, they have frowned upon it and said, you can't curtail the lawyer's perceptions, because ultimately justice must be done. And that justice must must be able to get over all these criticisms. And that is real justice. That's what the judges of the judges of the courts in United Kingdom said. And I too am agreeable on that aspect. However, Shreya Singhal's case, which came up under Article 19, 1 and 2 of the Constitution relating to the freedom of expression, particularly for lawyers, and this is what the Supreme Court had to say. And the restrictions were 8 in number. The first one was, the reasonable restriction of the first one was, don't touch upon the sovereignty and integrity of this nation. That was the first point in the test, the eighth test. The second was, don't touch upon the sovereignty of the state. The third was, don't touch upon the friendly relationship between states. The fourth was, don't touch upon public order. The fifth was the words inconvenience. Then morality, then decency, then contempt of court, and then annoyance. Of course, there are any number of judgments on what is inconvenience, what is, of course, defamation, that's always there, but what is morality? These are things that you should not transgress while you are on an understanding of freedom of expression and speech, freedom of speech. So communication takes into fold a plethora of adjectives, a plethora of it. You just have to be a rational human being. If you are a rational human being, you can come down to terms and decide what should be the best way of communicating to any person. Let it be a judge, your own parents, your siblings, your peers, anybody whom you come in contact with. And communication is such an important thing for it's a lifeline for the human being, for the human race itself. So with these, my request is, I would like the participants to speak more about what they have learned in the communication and the communication skills. This interactive session would definitely pop up several issues which perhaps need to be answered for the individual who brings it out. And that is the wonderful way of communicating again with all the participants. May I request the Bengaluru Law College, the organizers and director, Mr. Shiv Prasad, to put this across to all the participants, and I'm willing to answer their questions. I thank the entire team of Bengaluru Law College, the Vice Chancellor, Sri Professor Ishwar Bhatt, Professor Venkat Rao, my good friends, Professor Balla and Father Manuel, and every student who is here and every lawyer who has come on to this webinar to listen to what I have said. I thank all of them for the patient hearing that they gave me today. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Lordship.
There's somebody who raised their hand. Yes. Somebody who raised their hands.
Yes. They have a question, Your Lordship. How
Sure.
important is language and vocabulary in the profession?
Right. First, I will answer this on the basis of my experience.
I request others to mute, please.
I will first say my experience and then answer this question. I was in the midst of hearing a particular matter in court, and I use the word, I am exasperated by the submissions that were made. There was a lawyer sitting on the other side on the bench, and as I could listen to what he said, this judge is using foul language. I was aghast. I said, exasperation is not a foul language. I asked my court officer to bring the dictionary, open out the word exasperate, and show it to the learned counsel, so that he could see what exactly I meant and what was the meaning of this word. So you see, words by themselves in English, they're so important. Language plays an important role because English is the official language of the High Court. You may go to all the district judiciary and argue in the regional languages. Nobody comes your way. But if you're going to argue in a High Court or the Supreme Court, you have to use English as the language. And English, making a sentence, it is a double-edged sword. You can mean it this way or that way in English language. So you've got to be very careful when you make the choice of the words. So English by itself per se is an important thing. Acquiring that language in all forms, for all purposes, will definitely go a long way to any student or any student. I would say any student of any professional course, but more so for a student in law. English is an important aspect, and they must learn to know how to frame their sentences, their punctuation, and what exactly they mean by the use of a particular word. I am also reminded of yet another incident. I was sitting with the Chief Justice, Justice Kehar, in First Court. There was a lawyer who would always argue in Kannada language. And for the first time, his matter had come up before the bench constituted by the Chief Justice then. The gentleman started arguing in Kannada because I am conversant in Kannada, and I had allowed him to argue in Kannada when I was in the single bench. So he must have assumed that I will permit him to argue in Kannada in the division bench. While arguing, it so happened that the Chief Justice, who was next to me, he asked me and said, "Brother, this guy is arguing in a language I don't understand. So what do we do?" I said, "My lord, I understand the language, and I will be prepared to translate it to you in whatever fashion you want, but only in English, because I don't know much of Hindi." So his lordship kept quiet. He said, "All right, let him go his own way." Then the Kannada version of the arguments went on, and finally he concluded. Immediately, the surprise to me also was his lordship, Justice K, started speaking in Punjabi. He questioned the lawyer in Punjabi. I too did not understand what Punjabi was, because I'm not so good at that language. I'm not a linguist. I was taken aback, and I was quite surprised. And then I looked at the chief, and then he just winked at me and said, "Keep quiet." And he went on and on and on in Punjabi. The whole court was, it was hilarious for the whole court to listen to him. Finally, he concluded. He kept quiet. And then the lawyer stood up and said in Kannada, "I have not understood anything that the Chief Justice said." The Chief Justice asked me, "What did he say?" I said, "This is what he said." Immediately he retorted and said in English, "I have not understood anything of what you said in Kannada." So, just to tell you that the official language of the High Court is English, and therefore English is an integral part of the system which you cannot get away with. Therefore, learning to read in English, learning to argue in English will make a lot of difference. English, when you start reading these judgments, you will pick up the words very easily. Some of these judgments are so wonderfully written, particularly Justice Krishnaya. If you can read a few of his lordship's judgment, you will not require a dictionary again. You can use it for once, understand what his lordship said, and you don't need a dictionary at all. So language spoken, language which is used for arguments, language which is used for persuasive understanding of things, being concise and precise. English is a must. So everybody must learn this language. This is how I view. I know the Kannada literaries are going to jump at me, but I'm not opposing it. What I'm trying to say is, in the High Court, you need this language. So language is important. Even otherwise, I look at it in a different way. I look at it as a language that I also learn. To be a linguist, there is nothing wrong. So you can learn the language for the sake of learning at least, if not for anything else. That's my answer to the question.
Thank you, Your Lordship. Only relevant questions will be taken before the Lordship. Lordship, one more important question.
One moment.
Yes.
Everything is relevant. Nothing is irrelevant.
Thank you, Your Lordship. What is the convincing language and persuasion to be used in the court, especially for convincing the judge? That is the question raised by one of the students.
Wonderful. Okay, now the student will get an answer. The first and foremost convincing and persuasiveness in communication is to understand the judge. Learn to understand what the judge wants. The judge has an expression on his face. There are judges who don't show expression, but there are certain judges who show their expression. So the moment something is said, either it registers up here and then the expression comes out of the face. You must do some face reading. You see, lawyers must become good face readers. They must be able to grapple that situation. What exactly the lawyer said and how was it received by the judge? Any one question by the judge, the lawyer should be able to understand what is running in the mind of the judge. This is a most important thing if you want to be persuasive. If a judge is unwilling to listen to something, you must know where to draw the line and say, cut yourself off. Don't proceed further. There's no useful purpose. Get to the next line. Lawyer must have at least 5 or 6 alternatives. This is 1, not acceptable. 2, not acceptable. 3, so he must have plans A to Z. This is the persuasiveness that a lawyer can make if he wants to be good at his profession. The tone in which he's going to talk, that will decide the case, believe me.
Thank you, Your Lordship. We are immensely grateful for sharing your thoughts and experience, especially how communication is important in the field of law. And please accept our sincere gratitude, Your Lordship. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We have our next speaker. We'll move on to the next session. So, choice, chance, change. You must make the choice to take the chance if you want anything in life to change. We have with us an idealistic personality, Professor Dr. Venkat Rao, Chairman, Vivekananda Institute of Law and Legal Studies, and former Vice Chancellor of National Law School, India University. Now, I call upon Professor Bhavana, Assistant Professor, Bengaluru Law College, to introduce Sir to this virtual platform.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, everyone. To all, I welcome you all to the virtual gathering here. It is my prerogative honor to have Professor Dr. Venkat Rao, Chairperson, Vivekananda School of Law and Legal Studies, to mentor us on career prospects in law. Sir, I am fortunate to have you introduced to our upcoming legal fraternity. Sir has had 42 years of research and teaching experience and has served at various capacities in National Law School, Bangalore and Andhra University. He has acquired He has acquired educational qualification from Utkal University, Sir has been awarded with Gold Medal for Best PhD Thesis and Best Researcher Award from Andhra University. Further was confirmed with Best Vice Chancellor Award for Outstanding Contribution to Education and Professor N.R. Madhav Menon Best Law Teacher Award in 2018. And on the occasion of 60 years of Indian Society of International Law, Sir was given a Lifetime Achievement Award and has been bestowed with Golden Asian Award for Most Inspiring Vice Chancellor. The list is unceasing. On behalf of Law Wings Education Trust and Bangalore Law College, we welcome you and kindly request you to enlighten us on the prospects of career. Sir, please grace the current platform.
So unmute yourself, Venkatraman.
Yes.
Yeah.
How is the sound?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, that's good. Because I'm always fascinated with the Philips advertisement says the sound is sound. Okay. And because in this virtual world, otherwise you will be caught in the web. And a lawyer must always understand the famous poem of Alexander Pope. You know, I'll come to that later, but before that, let me have the privilege of salutations to Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Ishwar Bhatt, my good friend. Then, my Lord, revered Honorable Justice Ramohan Reddy, sir. I will not call you retired judge because judges and teachers never retire. They rarely die. They influence eternity. I must start on a compulsory note today, sir. When Mr. Shivaprasad has asked me to participate in this, I said, I have a meeting from 10 to 11. Therefore, kindly permit me to join after 11 o'clock. Then he said, sir, we have the erudite address of Justice Ramohan Reddy, sir, from 10:30. Then I jumped at it and I said, I will reschedule my meeting after 12:30. And my Lord, what a luminous erudition I had this morning. And it would have been an unpardonable miss for me if I were to miss your erudition. Therefore, Honorable Justice Ramohan Reddy, sir, then revered Father Emmanuel, Principal, sir, Professor Shivaprasad, Director Academics, distinguished colleagues, and fellow students, because I consider myself to be always a student of law, and the 21st century hopes of this great country. When I was listening to the erudition of Justice Ramohan Reddy, sir, when he was focusing on tone, I was reminded of what my professor told me in the classroom. And he said, you always remember that wonderful proverb in English language, to leave no stone unturned. But a lawyer should develop the technique of leaving no tone unturned, sir. This is what I have learned from you today. And I'm grateful to you. But my special thanks to Professor Ishwar Bhatt and Shivaprasad for conferring on me the honor of sharing the virtual platform, especially with Justice Ramohan Reddy, because during my sojourn as the Vice Chancellor of National Law School of India University, the wonderful insights that the Chief Justice and the puisne judges of Karnataka High Court used to give us were responsible for me contributing to the best of my ability to National Law School of India University, Bangalore. And this morning, I'm sharing the virtual platform with him, and I'm grateful to him. And when we speak about careers in law, the one statement I would like to make is even the sky is not the limit. As Sajan Puvaya, senior advocate from Bangalore, and our former student from National Law School of India University, Bangalore, says, the sky is not the limit, sir. Even the galaxy cannot be the limit. That's what it says for an aspiring lawyer. But when Professor Ishwar Bhatt and Honorable Justice Ramohan Reddy sir were referring to the constitutional mandate, my mind went back to a wonderful statement made by Justice Krishna in one context, where he said, all law students must remember and should never forget, keeping the Constitution of India at the back of their minds and at the center of their hearts, one axiomatic truth that the only profession to find a place in the Constitution of India is legal profession, he said. Look at all the 395 articles and 12 schedules, no other profession is found. But Article 22, Clause 1 speaks about to be defended by a legal practitioner of your choice. Therefore, persons who would like to enter legal profession must always remember that this is a constitutionally ordained profession and they are ordained to fulfill the preamble aspirations and the constitutional goals. And with this caveat, I would say, you must have heard in the classrooms a word called condition precedent a number of times. And if you want to prove to the world that even the sky is not the limit, there are 5 essential conditions precedent to be fulfilled if you want to be successful in legal profession. Because as the principles of management say, the bottom is crowded, but there is room at the top. There is not only room, but there is sufficient room at the top. But what are those conditions precedent? My task has been made much easier and more formidable with the inaugural letters of Ishwar and Justice Ramon Reddy. I'll be repeating a couple of points told by them. The first point is there is no substitute for hard work. And in legal profession, success would be a deferred dividend. And you can never be denied of success provided you work hard. In legal profession, overnight success means 20 years of hard work. And you must always remember that a successful person is one who keeps himself awake when the whole world sleeps. And higher and higher in the book Professional Ethics, they recall the statement that law is a jealous mistress. Mark the use of the word. And in that book, they say, law is not called a jealous wife, but law is called a jealous mistress. Because a wife is always more tolerant, but a mistress is always demanding. She demands all your attention all the time. Otherwise, she'll slip out of your grasp. Law is also like a jealous mistress. It requires all your attention. And when you have started the process of learning in advocacy, again, I'm quoting Justice Krishna here, never become a learned advocate. Krishna used to say, when somebody refers to me as a learned judge, I never take it as a compliment. Because the moment people refer to me as a learned judge, I feel they say, oh, Mr. Judge, you have become a thing of the past. You are anachronistic, you are obsolete, you are demonetized, you are out of circulation. Therefore, a judge should be a learning judge and not a learned judge. An advocate also should be a learning advocate and not a learned advocate. And that learning should be with always pleasure and never should be under pressure. And you must always remember when Justice Ramon Reddy sir was speaking about excellence, in a race for excellence in legal profession especially, there is no finish line. There is only the starting line. You have commenced the race and therefore there is no finish, okay? And the last point is very important. I quote the former Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court when he was asked a question, whom would you like to appoint as judges or law officers? You know what he said? I would like to appoint a good human being who also knows a bit of law. That means the focus was more on good human being, the focus was more on honesty and trustworthiness, and those qualities you are supposed to develop. Therefore, if you develop these 5 conditions precedent, legal profession would be at the success at legal profession would be at your doorstep. And now I'll be coming to the career avenues or openings that are available to in legal profession. I'll start on a personal note. Here again, I'll refer to Justice Ramon Reddy's speech. In 1970s, when I opted to join a law school. While doing literature, we were allowed to do simultaneously. After rejecting offers, you will be surprised, from a medical school and an engineering school, my professor called me and said, "Are you mad?" Because these days people are prepared to part with their vital limbs to get a seat in medical college. Your father is a doctor, and then you are getting a calling from a medical college, you are rejecting it, and you are trying to join where? In a law college. And whom do you have in law college? People who don't get seats anywhere else. And don't you remember the words of M.C. Shatlava? That's what he said. Who said, India has the tradition of producing brilliant lawyers in spite of colleges and not because of law colleges. And as I always say, a Palkiwala, a Shatlava are exceptions and not the rule. And my principal said, law colleges are supposed to provide parking spaces for vehicles which can be parked elsewhere. And you are joining in law. And then I said, with due to you, I would like to follow my heart. And today I have not regretted my decision. But the thought process in the 1970s was even the matrimonial market, the least preferred person for lawyers. But in the last 30 years, there has been a total metamorphosis that brought about both in the landscape of legal education and in the legal profession. Now, this metamorphosis that was about in the landscape of legal education is primarily responsible for the paradigm shift in the landscape of legal profession, because what law school is today, tomorrow will be the bar, and day after tomorrow will be the bench. Today, excellence has become a habit and not an isolated act. And therefore, this legal profession today is the preferred profession, and legal education is the preferred education. In the United States of America, you know, people who do not get seats in Stanford Law School, Yale Law School, or Harvard Law School, or Columbia Law School, to name a few, then they chance their arm for engineering and medicine. And in India, that is happening now. In National Law School, Bengaluru, about 7 years ago, a student, both his parents were reputed neurosurgeons in Bombay with a 400-bed hospital. And that boy refused to follow the advice of his parents, and he joined the law, much to the chagrin of his parents. But when he won the World Moot Court Championship, his father wrote me a letter saying that my son has proved me wrong. That means today, students reject seats in engineering colleges, IITs, medical schools, and opt to seek admission in law schools. Why? Because of the lucrative career openings that you have. And what are the career openings that you have after you complete law? Professor Ishwar Bhatt was referring to judicial services. And I will start with that. Because after listening to the erudition of Justice Rammohan Reddy, I thought if such an erudite lecture were to be given to me during my first year of LLB days, perhaps I would have chanced my arm becoming a member of judiciary. Today, all India judicial services is on the anvil, like civil services, IAS and others. And some of the states are taking fresh law graduates in the judiciary. States like Rajasthan and Bihar. And if you become a judicial officer at the age of 22, 23, what career awaits you? Because this is, apart from traditional distinction like civil lawyers and criminal lawyers, that's a thing of the past. Because in 1970s, the only opening was black coat lawyers. If you complete law, you have a black coat, you go there. But today, the profession of law has broken the boundaries of the court, if I'm permitted to use the word, and has expanded to not only to corporate house, law agencies, law firms, litigation, and administrative services, among others, but Today, a law graduate can become a human rights activist, an environmental activist, can work with an NGO, can work in legal process outsourcing, can work with multinational corporations in the international business front, can work in banking sector, can opt for civil services, as Justice Raman Reddy were telling, and above all, opt for a career in judiciary. Now, today, a career in judiciary is financially also well paid after Jagannath Shetty's recommendations and Justice Reddy's recommendations, which are going to be implemented soon, or go for teaching. And as far as the joys of teaching are concerned, as a teacher with 42 years experience, I can say it can only be experienced and cannot be explained. Therefore, these are the myriad and diverse openings that you have for your career. And when I was a student, people used to say, are you going to become a criminal lawyer? Or are you going to become a civil lawyer? But today, people will ask you, are you going to become a space law lawyer? This word I had never heard at all when I was a student in law college. And space law provides you so many opportunities that institutions like NALSA are offering specialization in space law also. Then cyber law. Remember, Justice Reddy was referring to Shreya Sinha's case in the section 66, etc., etc. And artificial intelligence, fourth industrial revolution has affected every one of us. But as Klaus Schwab says, remember, robot can replicate your brain, but a robot cannot replicate your heart and soul. And therefore, as Robin Sharma says in his book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, even if you master law, don't miss your life. Because when robot cannot replace your heart, when robot cannot replace your soul, the heart is full of passion and compassion. The soul is full of fulfillment. And therefore, a lawyer should never sacrifice his heart and soul, remember. And therefore, cyber law, and then a very peculiar branch of law is today the virtual gold mine, private international law or conflict of laws. Remember, this was unheard of during 1970s. And today, thanks to globalization, geography is becoming a part of history. And we are all becoming global citizens. Remember, Vasudhaivika Kutumbikam is proved. And today, a person in the United States can enter into a contract with a person in India, saying that the contract will be performed in Australia. 3 countries are involved. And God forbid, there is a breach. The contract was not performed. To which court you should go? What is the forum that you have to choose? This is the question that is answered in private international law. I have given you only the example of law of contracts, but similarly the case with law of torts, law of property, law of bankruptcy, matrimonial disputes, where persons from 2 different nations marry and settle down in a third country, and later some discord takes place. Now, therefore, conflict of laws or private international law is under gold mine. And the next one is, of course, the confluence of law, science, and technology. 21st century is a century of law, science, and technology. Today, we teach our students about an acronym called STEM, S-T-E-M, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And we say the world is governed by these 4. But people have started now realizing the importance of law. And very soon, I'm sure, this acronym STEM will be changed and will become MELTS, M-E-L-T-S. M for mathematics, E for engineering, L for law, T for technology, and S for science. And in MELTS, law occupies the center stage. Today, in the post-pandemic world, you see the right to health care and the impact of technology on that. Okay. Genetic engineering, the impact of technology on that. And the ramification of law in various and diverse areas of artificial intelligence. Therefore, the future is going to be that of a confluence of law, science, and technology. You can specialize in that. There are some institutions which are already offering programs in that. Therefore, apart from the fact that there are intellectual property attorneys, medical law attorneys, then tax lawyers, we are now teaching also, of course, popularly called as alternate dispute resolution. Everyone would know that. But I'm sure in future, this would be called appropriate dispute resolution, because the focus is now shifting to professional mediators and negotiation to be done professionally, because all lawyers cannot be mediators. A person who argues in a court of law in the morning in a different case cannot come in the afternoon and say, I will mediate. That's what has been happening, unfortunately. If you look at the United States, where 95% of the cases are settled through mediation, it is all done through professional mediators. In India also, recognition of this happened. And focus is now on professional mediators. And you can undergo that course to acquire skill in mediation. And the future is that of professional mediators. Likewise, negotiations to develop that idea. My professor used to say, in every negotiation, you must start with an ideal, IDEAL. And after some time, you must remove that I, so that this ideal will become deal. And that I would stand for ideas. And what are those ideas that will make you negotiate, not out of fear, remember, but with confidence? Therefore, negotiation and mediation. But this is all about 20th century lawyering. Well, now 21st century lawyers. And first thing I would like to tell you is, please read 4 important books on career prospects for lawyers in 21st century, written by, out of these 4, 3 are written by Richard Susskind and Daniel Susskind. R-I-C-H-A-R-D, Richard. Susskind is S-U-S-S-K-I-N-D. And Daniel, D-A-N-I-E-L, Susskind, again S-U-S-S-K-I-N-D. These 2 have written 3 important seminal books. The first one is The Future of the Professions. How the profession will be in 21st century. The second book is Tomorrow's Lawyers, an Introduction to the Future. That means how tomorrow a lawyer is going to be in the future. The third one is very important, Online Courts and the Future of Justice. I repeat, the first one is The Future of the Professions. The second one is Tomorrow's Lawyers, an Introduction to the Future. The third one is Online Courts and the Future of Justice, all written by Susskind. Online Courts and Future of Justice is very important because of late you have been hearing about ODR as a mechanism, online dispute resolution mechanism. And with the rise in e-commerce, establishment of e-courts, and hybrid hearings becoming a reality in the courts, ODR is an idea. This time has come to stay. It's an idea, remember. And therefore, in fact, the National Law School of India University, Bengaluru, you have an ODR lab under the Consumer Law Chair, which Professor Ashok Patil is heading. And Karnataka State Law University can take the advantage of collaborating with the National Law School of India University, Bengaluru, to give the exposure to thousands of students about the working of ODR. Okay, right. Now somebody asking me to tell the names of the authors of the book. The names of the authors are Richard, R-I-C-H-A-R-D, Richard Susskind, S-U-S-S-K-I-N-D. The second author is Daniel, D-A-N-I-E-L, again Susskind, S-U-S-S-K-I-N-D. Okay. Richard Susskind and Daniel Susskind. They have written 3 books: The Future of the Professions, Tomorrow's Lawyers, and then Online Courts and the Future of Justice. And the 4th book I was about to tell you was a book written by an American jurist named Stephen Harper, Stephen Harper. The title of the book is The Lawyer Bubble: How the Lawyer Bubble has exploded, burst in the United States. Okay, he speaks about 21st century lawyering in that book. Therefore, these are the 4 seminal books which you are required to read. And coming back to my point of ODR, ODR has come to stay in 21st century and another avenue. And so far, I have not told you anything about your constitutional responsibility, accepting mentioning that legal profession is the only profession to find a place in the Constitution of India. Remember, justice, social, economic, and political, and fraternity, which both my preceding speakers were focusing upon, cannot be achieved if you do not give enough time for pro bono lawyering when you take up cudgels as a legal professional. Every lawyer should allot at least 10% of his time for pro bono lawyering, so that no person is priced out of the legal system. Because in India today, yes, that's it. In India, you find today there is a crisis, as Professor Upendra Bakshi says, of confidence in the institutions, including judiciary, because poor people are feeling that they are excluded. Now, more than docket explosion, which means arrears in the courts of law, docket exclusion is more dangerous. And so many people are priced out of the Indian legal system. And therefore, that will lead to crisis of confidence. And ultimately, it may lead to people taking recourse to extra constitutional measures. Therefore, we have a tremendous responsibility on our shoulders to help the cause of the poor people by taking up pro bono lawyering. Because as Abhishek Singhvi in one of his articles says, a lawyer should not only be just a lawyer. He must be a harmonizer. He must be a reconciler. He must be a legal architect. And he must be an inventor. And he must be a social engineer. Therefore, apart from all these things, you need to have pro bono lawyering. And Honorable Justice Ramohan Reddy was referring to Professor Bashir Khan, Professor of International Law. And you know, young friends, if you specialize in international law, there is a separate division called Division of Legal and Treaties Division in Government of India Ministry, where if you join as a young law officer, you can go up to the highest. And I can name number of people who have specialized in international law, starting with Dr. P.S. Rao, who became an ad hoc judge of International Court of Justice. Then Dr. S. Ramarao, who is now in WIPO. Then Dr. Gandhi. Then Dr. Sudhakar Reddy, M.K. Rao, Y. Umashankar, who would be helping the cause of India in the United Nations Security Council, General Assembly, and other things. And they'll be spending most of the time in New York, UN Secretariat, and other things. That is another career opening that you have. But coming back to 21st century, Richard Susskind, in his book, Tomorrow's Lawyers, An Introduction to the Future, he speaks about that in 21st century, you will have new jobs for lawyers. And you will be surprised, you know, the new jobs he mentions are, you will be a legal knowledge engineer. That means hybrid is coming. Already, Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur has already started a course, 3-year LLB course, especially meant for engineering graduates, then MCA, MSc Computers, others. And therefore, In future, you will have legal knowledge engineers. Then you will have legal technologists. Then you will have legal hybrids. We have not heard these words excepting in few metropolitan cities now. Then you have legal project manager. These are all the jobs that will be coming in 21st century. Then you have the OER practitioner. Then you have legal management consultant. And then you will have legal risk manager. Richard Susskind, in fact, says there are moves towards a new discipline. Till today, administration of justice and the domain of law has focused on dispute resolution. And even we also teach in the classrooms, peaceful settlement of disputes, negotiation, mediation, conciliation, arbitration, adjudication. That means when a dispute arises, how do you settle it? Do you settle it peacefully? Because as Krishna had said, if peaceful settlement becomes impossible, violent settlement will become inevitable. Therefore, we have come out with a mechanism to settle disputes peacefully. But tomorrow in 21st century, Mr. Susskind says, the focus will not be on dispute settlement, but the focus will be on not on dispute resolution, but dispute avoidance. A group of technocrats, multidisciplinary specialists will work together to provide the wherewithal for avoiding disputes, and that is called legal risk management. There will be a juxtaposition of accountants, consultants, tax specialists, engineers, environmental engineers, and lawyers who together will provide professional services focusing on dispute avoidance and not dispute resolution. And then Susskind says, in 21st century, the employers for lawyers would not necessarily be only law firms, but legal know-how providers, legal process outsourcers, then high street retail business, then legal leasing agencies, all alien words for us now. And then new look law firms, then online legal service providers, legal management consultancies. This is going to be the 21st century lawyering, that's what it says. That means technology will move. Now today in India use technology, but technology has only a back office system where email, accounting, then word processing. And you make use of legal research tools like Westlaw, LexisNexis. But today, number of systems are emerging from back office will come to front office. And technology will play an important role to such an extent that I will recall the words of Sajan Povaya. Okay, I quote Sajan Povaya once again, a senior advocate from Bengaluru, who is doing a great job, a distinguished alumnus of National Law School, who says the scope for law is phenomenal. It has always been good, of course. And in the last 25 years, more so, the sky is not the limit, but the galaxy, he says. Technology has enabled a lawyer in such a way that he can be in India and service the world. Look at people like Harish Shalve. The need for technology lawyering cannot be believed. Very few lawyers can cater to that internationally. Therefore, it's time for you to hitch your wagon to stars and become an international lawyer. And then, wonderfully, optimistically says, the demand and supply is so oriented that you can only grow and cannot fail. That means there is a lot of demand for internationally acclaimed, technology-enabled lawyers. Take up law. The quality standard of legal education has grown. Today, the Indian mind is treated with respect all over the world. The world has realized, please remember, that the Indian youth will not settle for anything, not settle even for the second best. They want better than the best. And when you want better than the best, why should you settle for anything less than the best in choosing your career? And when you are choosing your career, these are the openings. private international law, space law, cyber law, a lucrative career in judiciary, then apart from, of course, your traditional lawyering. But here, my sincere appeal is to parents. Remember, Justice Raman Reddy was telling, traditionally speaking, only medicine and engineering. He was absolutely right. And my appeal is, look beyond getting hooked to the traditionally accepted professions of medicine and engineering as the only options available. Because I know in 1970s and 80s, the Eldorado or the dream world of the parents would come crashing if their children do not get a seat in medicine and engineering. Because therefore, like there'll be a change in the mindset of the parents. Because out-of-box thinking only will result in out-of-box ideas. Parents must come out of the thought process of the 20th century. Because you cannot have solutions to 21st century problems with a 20th century mindset and 19th century working tools. Medicine and engineering are good, but it doesn't mean that law should be only the bridesmaid. Okay. And parents must come out of the thought process of 20th century, but very difficult because parents are the products of 20th century. I'm a grandparent. I'm also a product of 20th century. But I'm encouraging my grandchildren to do only law. Okay. Therefore, otherwise, you will become unintended victims of Darwinism, will not be able to adopt. So this is the world of law. And this world of law beckons you. And the legal profession provides you one of the best avenues for success and contentment in life. That is very important. It's not for making money. For making money, there are so many other avenues to serve people, to serve the society, because to fulfill the constitutional goals. Remember, more than 2/3 of the members of the Constituent Assembly were lawyers. And the freedom struggle, the front arm was provided by lawyers. And therefore, as the present Chief Justice of India says, if you want a rule of law and not ruled by law, it is the legal profession that can come to. Therefore, you have to soar high in the space of law, where you have so many career openings. If you want to go to defense forces, you can become a judge advocate. Remember. Therefore, in fact, time doesn't allow me to make happy excursion to other areas. Therefore, it is, the seventh question that was asked in 1970s, are you going to become a civil lawyer or a criminal lawyer, doesn't hold good anymore. Remember, that's only a starting point. And you can make healthy tangential excursions without losing focus of the center. And all these centrifugal forces will help you. Therefore, my appeal to young friends is hitch your wagon to start. Take advantage of all the openings that are available to you, because with all this, I would say, with the poet Robert Browning, come along with me. The best of law is yet to be. You only have better times now. You have better than the best, and it is for you to take advantage. But remember, you are the captains of your ship and you are the masters of your fate. Therefore, take advantage of it, be a wonderful lawyer and fulfill the constitutional mandate. And if there are any questions, it will be my privilege to answer. Thank you very much for giving me a patient hearing, and my grateful thanks to Dr. Sivaprasad and his wonderful team for having given me the opportunity to interact with the formative minds. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you, sir, for your incredible time and words and sharing your wisdom with us. We move on to the next session. When you move your focus from competition to contribution, life becomes a celebration. We have with us the next eminent speaker on this virtual dais, who is a great orator and a man who is known for his principles. We have Reverend Father Emmanuel, Director, Kristu Jayanti College of Law, Bengaluru. I shall now request Professor Sulabha, Assistant Professor, Bengaluru Law College, to introduce Reverend Father to this virtual intellectual platform.
Good afternoon, everyone. It gives me a great pleasure to introduce to everyone our next esteemed speaker, the Reverend Father Emmanuel PJ of CMI Community Seminary, Director of Crystal Jayanti College of Law, Bengaluru, for today's virtual workshop, who is going to speak on personality development skills, its relevance in profession. Father Emmanuel has obtained degree in various disciplines, namely philosophy, commerce, and theology, and masters from Fordham University, New York, in psychology and counseling. Later, worked in New York and flew for nearly 10 years. In 2015, Father joined Crystal Jayanti College, Bengaluru, and started teaching psychology and counseling. Later, in 2019, took over the office as the director of the Crystal Jayanti College of Law. I now request Father Emmanuel to address the students and grace the session.
Thank you. I'm indeed honored and very much privileged to be among this great galaxy of resource persons. And I would never imagine to be addressing all of you at any of the platforms like this at any point of my life if I were not part of Crystal Jayanti family and Karnataka State Law University as the mentor and director of the College of Law. On the outset, I wanted to especially greet and express my gratitude to Professor Dr. P. Ishar Bhatt sir, the Honorable Vice Chancellor of KSLU, and Honorable Justice Ramohan Reddy, the Judge of High Court of Karnataka, who is a great blessing for Crystal Jayanti College of Law in various occasions by his gracious presence, and Professor Dr. Venkata Rao, Chairman and former Vice Chancellor, who is also a great benevolent resource person for Crystal Jayanti College of Law. And I wanted to greet and thank all the officials from Karnataka State Law University, which includes Sri Muhammad Subair, Professor Dr. G.B. Patil, sir, Professor Dr. Ragnabi, Bharam Gaudar, sir, and Professor, all the other resources from the Karnataka State Law University, and also Professor K. Siva Prasad and Professor Devika, Madam, from Bengaluru Law University for inviting me to this interactive as well as inspirational moment with our final year law students from various parts of the Karnataka who belong to the zone of the KSLU. I also wanted to greet all the honorable judges and advocates, principals and directors and professors and faculty members and other stakeholders who are also present here, because I should honor your gracious presence before even I begin to say anything. And I really wish and greet that all of us may, in one way or the other, contribute to the growth and well-being of our student community, which is entrusted to us. I would briefly share the screen for a moment, and which I would do, and then I would probably continue to speak without the screen if I'm hoping. I wanted to begin with a picture, which I am hoping that all of you are able to see, which has a horse in it. And the caption that captured my attention very much, because I believe that if and only if we have a strong purpose in life, we can achieve what we have to achieve. In that case, you don't have to be pushed, because your passion will drive you there. And that is definitely the key word, the key phrase that I wanted to insist as we do this session today. We know that what is personality is a combination of characteristics and qualities that form character of an individual. In American Psychological Association would define personality as a combination of thinking and feeling and behaving, which has broad areas like sociability or individual differences, as well as the various parts of the person that come together as a whole. So while looking at the personality, I understand that we are talking about the holistic of the human being. It includes every aspect of our existence. And as a lawyer or as a graduating law student who are attending this session mainly, should understand that there are a lot of aspects of a personality that is to be nurtured and molded as you come out of the campuses and become effective social engineers of the society who are going to be helped by your expertise and your compassion. And I believe that the passion for the profession is one of the most important aspect of your existence as a lawyer. And definitely the passion has to be coupled with a compassion. You're not a boss of the client, but rather you are a mentor and a guide who in their difficult times are coming to you. And so keep that heart first before the head. The compassion for the clients is very, very important. And as Honorable Justice Ram Mohan Reddy sir very effectively expressed through his elaborate practical experience sharing, the great communication skills that all of us needed, oral and written. And he also continued and said a judge and an advocate is primarily a good listener. The willingness to listen is very important. And the knowledge of the law, which is absolutely the primary target. We are not, as an ordinary layperson, coming to anyone who have partial knowledge or who would say like, I would just Google it and give you an answer. I would expect that every child who is passing out of the university and degree colleges, possessing this great knowledge of the law, ability for conclusions and judgment, analytical skills, research skills. And I would love to see all of you, my dear students, who would love to take even a degree in philosophy, and ability to logically connect with the situation, to analyze. This may be one of the very rarest professions wherein you need skepticism as part of your profession. You need a healthy skepticism. The clients that are coming to you are actually in a box. They don't know how to get out of the problem. They don't know how to resolve it. And you need to help to unbox, take them out of the box. And for that, creativity is very essential. Creativity we define as, looking things out of the box. So even the realities of life, that is a very essential thing. Logical thinking ability, public speaking skills, perseverance, all these matters a lot if you're planning to become a good lawyer. So you have, as an advocate, as an attorney, a lot of responsibilities. You have a responsibility and duty towards the court, towards the client, towards the opponent, towards the society. So these responsibilities, when you are carefully executing as part of your legal life, you're definitely becoming a blessing to the society. I think somebody's accidentally not on the mute, so maybe the host can help to unmute them. Sorry for that interruption. Qualities found in lawyers, as we know, the primary thing I believe is the reliability. how much your client or the public can rely on you in the personal and professional level. Nobody is coming to any profession, not only in the legal, even in the medical profession, or in the religious, or in academic or social, or any profession that you do. Reliability is a primary quality of your personality. You must be reliable. People must be able to trust in you and rely on your personal and professional level. And the responsiveness is also matching with that. How often are you able to return the inquiries in person? The responsiveness, the competence. Do you possess the required ability of legal resourcefulness? That is a question. And it is going to be tested on the real ground very soon as you graduate and become a professional. And definitely your accessibility. Can people reach you in times of their need 24/7, 365? Or are you say that, oh, no, this is my personal time and I'm not going to be around after 4 o'clock? So this is a great commitment that, my dear students, who you are becoming is expecting from you. So the courtesy, how affectionate are you? Do you offer respect and recognition to people? Do you respect the other as bigger than you? Do you have, as Honorable Justice Ranmohan Reddy sir mentioned, can you say the right things rightly and give the exact phrases and lines as it requires in the legal courts of expression? Do you have a credibility? Do you always keep up with the knowledge and the research? These are the qualities of the personality anyone would expect to have in the profession of an advocate and a lawyer. We are in a world of survival of the fittest. Every day, all of us are becoming salespersons. Though it may sound a little bit a business, it is not. We are all salespeople, a mother, a teacher, a lawyer, a doctor. Every one of us are selling, or what do you call, exhibiting ourselves and our capabilities in a very unique way to our given ones. If a mother is not responsible enough to take care of and nurture the child, or a teacher not providing enough education and nourishment to the student, if a lawyer is not able to take care of the needs of the client, and if a doctor is not competent enough to heal the patient, you're not actually selling yourself. So this sort of a salespeople attitude or a belief system is very essential in our legal journey, I believe. But there is a point. Before you can sell yourself to others, you must be convinced what you're selling. You must be sold on yourself. You must believe in yourself. You must have faith in yourself. You have to have a confidence in yourself. And then only you can be a resource person to be considered by others. So being aware of your own self-worth, you are what you believe, and you are what you think you are. Most of the philosophers would say that. So we must believe that, yes, I can do that. And we must be sold on yourself. We must. And that belief and the conviction of ourselves, very, very important. There was this one great American professional boxer whom probably the older generation would definitely remember, who was the boxer in 1974 champion. Before going for a huge, big world championship competition, there was a press conference in those days. And what he did, he told everyone, even before the press conference and during the press conference, that I am the world number one. I am the greatest. And this is what he said. I'm going to knock him down in 5 rounds. He just said that before going for the finals of the World Championship. And he said, I'm going to knock him down in 5 rounds. I'm sure about that. He was constantly saying that, and the whole media reported that. Whether he's going to do that, nobody knows. But then what did he do? He was selling himself. He was saying, yes, I will do it. I'm going to do it. If the opponent is going to listen to this, and if the whole world is talking about it, what is going to happen? He's definitely going to get it, because he is confident and he's selling himself. So the psyching of yourself, believing that I'm going to do it, no matter what, whether the world believes in me or not, whether my parents are quite sure about myself choosing this profession or not, whether my siblings and my classmates are saying, why are you becoming a lawyer? What are you going to do with that? What is that in that? And so, but you should be doing a psyching of yourself, and you should say that, yes, I am going to do it. I know my worth. And that sort of a selling of oneself is very, very, very important. So you should decide what and how you want to do in your life. You should have a goal. You should have a goal in your life, and that target and goal is very, very important to sell yourself, and break those targets and goals into small targets, like a career or financial or family or social or spiritual, and that should take you to the next level of your life. And you have to make priorities for that, and set, I would say, a 5-year plan. Those who are graduating this year, next 5 years, what are you going to do? And next 1 year, what am I going to do? What am I going to do next month? What am I going to do tomorrow? Do you have a system of selling self with the proper plans and goals? That is very, very essentially important, because only with the proper planning and making sure that you have a vision, you can be selling yourself properly in the world, which is very highly competitive, or the survival of the fittest. This is an era of smartphones and smart systems. We need to have a SMART goal. SMART means S for specific, M for measurable, A for attainable, R for realistic, and T, time bound. So these plans and goals should be, our plans and goals should be SMART. So what do you mean? The SMART goal, specific SMART goal. I will give you a simple example. Someone who says that I will study law, yes, it is a goal. But when you are able to say that I will become a criminal lawyer, it is a specific goal. Rather than saying, yeah, I will one day be a lawyer and I'm going to be an inspiration to the world. But then you try to be specific in what you're saying. And that is very important. That specificity of your purpose is very, very important. Second one is measurable. Another example of that would be like somebody saying, yeah, I will score good marks in examination. It is a goal, but then rather, if a child is able to say that, yes, I will score 70% in the next semester examination, that is a measurable goal. So we all have to be very specific, and we all have to have a goal measurable. And we also have to have a goal which is attainable. Someone saying that I will go to Mars tomorrow, is that going to be an attainable goal? Rather, if somebody say that I will do exercise regularly, it is attainable, because you know that you can, if you are focused, you can definitely do this. And so that sort of an attainability, specificity, measurability of your goal is very important. And it also needs to be realistic. A realistic would be like saying, I will marry Miss World. It's not a realistic hope. But then when I say that I will improve my marks by 5%, that is probably an realistic goal, I would say. So rather than contemplating on the things which are probably not attainable or not specific or not reachable, let us be concrete with what we are doing and begin with the smaller targets, and let us keep doing what we are doing, which will make ourselves attainable with attainable goals, and which is called a SMART goal. Another one is the last one is SMART time bound. When somebody is saying that I will take a driving license, which is definitely a goal, but if you can say specifically, I will take a four-wheeler driving license in next to 4 months, it is a time bound. So my dear graduating students, try to keep a goal which is SMART and keep working on that. And that should enable you to be a promise for the world around you, because the world is looking for great people. And I was so fascinated when Honorable Justice Ramohan Reddy sir mentioned about his graduating experience of only 3 people graduating, and the only person survived who became the great, always honored Justice of the Karnataka High Court. And the other 2 found their own ways of expertise probably in their lives. But then what happened to the rest of the people? Probably they did not believe in themselves. Probably they did not had this SMART goal in their life. So it is easier said than done. So we all must understand that, okay, we have to have this specificity, attainability, and measurability, and the time-bound purpose and goals in our life. And if you think you can, you can. If you think you cannot, you cannot. Only if you think, maybe your teacher, maybe your principal, maybe your professors, your mentors are telling you that, hey, my dear student, you know what? You have a wonderful language capacity. You come from a wonderful family. Your teachers are, your parents are teachers, or your parents are doctors, engineers. You have a resourcefulness of your siblings and cousins. And why don't you become, why don't you do a little bit more? You're not going to be. Only if you think you can, you can. And there is a group of people who search for reasons. Sometimes students say, but I don't know why, I'm not clearing the exams. Why? That why is not very essentially important. You can ask the why in another context and say, what can be the solution? How can I probably improve? So search for a solution to the problem is very, very important to achieve your goal. So that self-worth concept is very, very important. And there is another concept which I wanted to share is the concept of the identical twins. The concept of the identical twins. People say that, yeah, I have nephews who are not identical twins. I have a lot of twins in my family, as true. And there is also an identical twin in my family. I often said that, but then when I learned the personality traits, and I understood that there is no such thing as identical twin. There is no such a thing as identical fingerprints, which all the honorable justices and advocates would agree, because there is no identical fingerprints. We all probably know that. There is no identical voice prints. There is no identical personality. So probably there is no such things as identical. You are unique. You are number one. That you have to believe. You're not going to compare yourself with somebody else and say, oh, look at that, I'm not really that fit. I'm not that sporty. I'm not that intelligent. I'm not that good in the labor laws, the criminal laws. That is okay. You are created to be unique. And that's the reason why you are looking like what you are now. So believe in that. And there is only one you. Even though they say that there may be 7 similar looking like people in the world, but nobody has ever recorded in the history that, yes, we identified all the 7 together and this is the 7. We have never seen that, but there is still a feeling or a philosophy that says that there may be 7 people who look alike. But then believe me, that you have to believe that you are unique. A few practical tips, probably it's going to help you, since you are all growing up in your life. You're all becoming. If you can do this, it should definitely help you. Every morning as you wake up, you go to the mirror in the morning and say that I am number one. I am number one in the person. And I am the number one person in my life. No matter what others are thinking, I am the number one. So if you can say that constantly, it is going to make a big change in your life, as the psychologists would say. And you can take probably these sticky notes and write, I am number one in different places and paste them in different places. It works for different people. Many people it works. It may look a little awkward or odd, probably for your parents or siblings to come to your room and say, hey, why, my dear child, you're doing this? But then when you look at certain motivational thoughts every day, when you wake up, as you keep going, it is going to impact you. There was an experiment done by Harvard University with some mice, rats, and they've given 30 rats to 15 students each. And one of the smallest children who had no idea about how to nurture and domesticate the rats were given, one group was given an instruction, said, this is the most intelligent rats in the world. So we are going to give you. So take these rats home and we will give you a big maze and try to see how fast these rats will come out of the maze. That was the experiment. So that students were given 15 rats, one each to the student, and they were taken to their homes. And another set of 15 students were gathered in another classroom and given the same species of the rats, and they were told, this is the stupidest rat ever born in the world. But still, we are hoping that you will be able to make them to come out of the maze. So try it. After a few days' time, it is observed that the students who got the so-called intelligent rats were able to finish their duty so quick and able to bring the rats back to the university and said, yeah, we have done that. Our rats, as you said, sir, it is super intelligent. They were able to reach it. The other group of students, after a week time or more, not able to achieve their goal. What happened? Do you think that the rats were able to listen and understand, oh my God, I'm stupid, so I'm not going to do that? Even the person who you are surrounded with can influence you. If it is influenced the behavior pattern of the rat, the animal, how much it is going to influence, my dear students, graduating lawyers, unless and until you find the right person to be surrounded with. So always make sure to have a winning self-image. I often say that have a faith in yourself, associate with the winners, avoid losers, and put negative thoughts of envy and jealousy and greed and hatred out of your life. And that is very, very important. And you need to give a pat on your back sometimes and say, yes, I've done a good job. I'm really proud of me. It's not creating a lot of ego in your life. It is rather to believe in yourself and say, yes, I'm doing good here. So that sort of a belief system is very, very, very essential as we grow, as we go to the world around us. There are a lot of powerful words in the world, and I would love to take one of the words is with the 5 letters called the faith. Faith in yourself, faith in others, faith in our abilities, faith in today, faith in your future. If you do not have that faith, then who will have that faith? If I do not have the faith, then who will have the faith in me? And that is a very, very, very important self-confident rule of your life. So build a very confident self and have a faith in you and in today. Second most powerful word, I believe, is a 4-letter word, again beginning with an F, fear. So powerful that if you let it, it can even wipe out your faith. Fear of the present, that you might fail. Some people are not able to do anything because what if I fail? So they are not, going to get up and it's like learning swimming and then still keeping on the shore and saying, I'm not sure if I'm going to do it good or not. Just like Honorable Justice Sir said, we had all the ones graduated or rather studied together, and nobody else survived because probably they were not quite sure about themselves. Fear of the past and its consequences. Many of the people are believing in Sigmund Freud. They say, my past was like this, you know what, and that's the reason I'm not able to do anything better. And my childhood wasn't that fascinating, so I'm not able to do great things in my life. So that sort of a feel of the past is destroying you. You may not need to be the best one who joined the college. I remember coming together as a community. We had students of my age when we joined the seminary. Many of them had just minimum 210 marks in the Guidence secondary school living certificate SSLC examination. And some of these people are now principals. Some of them are vice principals, and many of them are taken PhDs in various subjects and are great honored people in the country and the world. Because they didn't say that, oh my God, you know what, I had only 210 marks, and how am I going to do this? No. So believe in yourself. And fear of tomorrow is another big agony for many people. So they cannot believe in themselves, and they cannot expect them to be doing great. So my dear social engineers, going to be graduated lawyers, so please believe that you can. And if you don't believe, no one will be able to believe in yourself. So build self-confidence, which is very, very, very important. And that self-confidence and courage will take you to the next level of your life. So as I earlier said, believe in yourself. Associating with the confident people, tune up your confidence machine and be a master of your ship. As Honorable Vice Chancellor said, Professor Dr. Venkatarao sir mentioned, you must be the master of your ship. You are the master of your ship. Nobody else can sail you through. And make sure that keep yourself busy. I think among all the professions that I have exposed myself to, this profession of the legal studies is one of the most demanded program with regards to research and reading. There is nothing else. Maybe medical science would require you to be updating yourself. Maybe teachers would require them to be doing a lot of research. But then as a teacher, I can just sit back and relax and say, you know what, I'm taking the same subject as I was teaching last semester or last year. And I may probably need to update a little bit with regards to the research that is happening in that particular area. And I may be publishing a few papers here and there. But then I would say the legal people, willingly or unwillingly, you students, you have jumped into a problem yourself, unless and until you started opening your books. And all the honorable justices and advocates I've witnessed over the virtual platforms in various interactions that we had in the college and elsewhere, I've noticed that they are all sitting in front of a library. It's a personal library. They all have a library bigger than probably many of the colleges probably would ever have. Opening the books and looking at, glancing through is not enough. You have to probably, and I would say definitely, you have to learn and assimilate and understand and make it personal for yourself. When students come for the admission counselings, I often ask them a question like, about Indian Constitution. And I would tell them to own the Constitution Bare Act and start reading and writing each and every sections and articles and numbers of this and try to by heart it. The moment you hear about the fundamental rights, you should be able to say which section it is coming from, what the number is coming from. And that sort of keeping yourself busy and engaged is very, very, very important. Because if I'm a client, I will not come to you, my dear graduating advocate, unless and until I am confident that you really know your business. Unless and until I'm quite sure that I believe that you have a versatility of the law, I will not dare to come to ask for your help. So that sort of a seriousness I would expect as you are trying to get rid of your fear. So believe in yourself, associate with the confident people, tune up your confidence machine. And every day you have to keep doing that patting on the shoulder and say, yes, I can do it and I will do it. And taking care of yourself and your worries and anxieties and your problems by yourself. Maybe you need to take a professional help at times, and you can take that. And that is very important. The keeping busy is not just about playing the video games and saying, yeah, I'm very busy these days. You know what? That is not what I mean. Keep busy with the requirement of your profession. Keep busy building a library in your brain. You must become a walking encyclopedia. And that will take you to the next level. And without that, you cannot probably reach where you dare to, or you thought to, you ought to be. And that is very, very important. And again, my dear students, graduating students, I believe that I'm addressing them primarily. Think of yourself as successful. Think of yourself as loving. Think of yourself as attractive. There are people in the world who look different, with different colors, different backgrounds and cultural and ethnic differences and demographic differences. But then you should believe that I am what I am and this is enough for me. And that sort of a positive attitude to yourself is very, very important. These mantras are essentially important, I would say, as you are in the formation of your age of the character formation, wherein considering and treating yourself as successful, as loving and attractive and friendly and helpful, as I mentioned sometime earlier about that mouse and the experiment that they have done with the kids and the Harvard University. You know, unless and until you believe in yourself and you find the positivity in yourself, you cannot expect people to understand you as helpful and generous and are a very emotionally controlled person. So there are, I would say, there is a dozen lessons of life. That's what I'm talking about. Think of yourself as successful, as loving, as attractive, as friendly, helpful, generous, and are in control. And also think of yourself as strong. Think of yourself as courageous. Think of yourself as optimistic. Think of yourself as affluent, and think of yourself as having peace of mind. These are the dozen lessons of life. Some of these lessons may stay with you as you conclude the session. Some of them may not be there after this conversation, but then I'm hoping that the confidence that we have to build in ourselves, the attitudes, the personality traits that we are hoping to build in ourselves would make you a successful attorney, a successful lawyer. And one day you would be honored as the respectable judge of the state, of the country, and maybe even going beyond the horizon with your eruditeship and scholarship and your expertise. So please have this confidence and self-awareness and have a realistic objective, and make a habit of doing it now, and have an attitude of gratitude. Count your blessings, not your troubles. And as I earlier mentioned, learn and relearn. Stay away from the negative influence. Be a winner. You don't have to be doing different things, but do things in a different way. Mother Teresa was once asked, why you're doing this on the street, and she said that I'm not just doing it because I want it to be different, but I'm doing it because I have a fire in me, a fire of the love towards the Lord that she believed. So you have to have a passion and a flame within you to do what you're doing. And you should ask, why am I here? If I'm here to be a lawyer, then I'm going to be a winner. I'm going to be a role model to the people. I'm going to be a an inspiration and a blessing to the community. So the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. We heard the word dreams in many places. One of that is in the 1964, that Martin Luther King, who said, "I have a dream." That great inspirational speaker who has influenced the country to experience the justice and freedom, though it is still debatable in various parts of the country at times, but then he reached the goal of the dream. And our Honorable APJ Abdul Kalam, the former president of the country, often spoke to these students, to the world, and he said, dream, dream, dream. He said, it's not the dream that you have in the sleep, but it makes you sleep less. And the blessed founder of our CMI congregation, Saint Kuriakos Chavara, who inspired the youth of then, 200 years ago, to ask them to come together, live together, and work together to keep a vision of a new world through education, which inspired in the state of Kerala to start the first Sanskrit school in 1847, which permitted people of all religion, or color, or caste to come and sit together and study together. And he himself ordered to have a school. If there is a church, there must be a school. If not, the church will be closed. That was his vision. That was his dream. He said only through education, the society can be transformed. So that sort of a dream you must have. So the question is, do you have a dream? What is your dream? What do you think you're going to be? My dear social engineering graduates or graduating students of the Karnataka State Law University who are attending in through the Zoom or YouTube or other platforms or in other ways, we believe that we should start acting now. Do not wait for the perfect moment to take the moment and make it, and do not wait for the perfect moment. Take the moment and make it perfect. So that is the message of this gathering, I would say. I began with a horse, I hope you remember, and I wanted to conclude with a horse as well, because horsepower is still considered to be the greatest symbol of power and energy. Sometimes the thing that is holding you back is not necessarily the truth of the existing matter. It is just all that is in your head. That head, that the horse, which is, you can see probably if you are able to see the slide, the horse is just assuming in his head that, okay, I'm being tied here. And he's not trying to see probably, can I run away or not? So sometimes the thing that is holding you back is just all in your head. So thank you, and wish you, my dear young generation social transformers and advocates and the budding High Court and Supreme Court judges of the country, wishing you a wonderful learning and relearning and skilling and upskilling and reskilling yourself time, and wishing you a good luck. Thank you very much. Once again, wanted to thank very especially Karnataka State Law University, headed by the Honorable Ishwar Bhatt sir and all the other office bearers. And I'm really honored and especially with gratitude, I want to thank Professor Dr. Shiv Prasad sir, who invited me, and the Karnataka Law College, and all the other people who were patient enough to bear with me for my humble words of convictions. And also thank and Honorable Justice Ramohan Reddy sir and Professor Dr. Venkatrao sir for giving me an opportunity to be hosting this session with you. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Father. Father, there's a question from a student that, Father, kindly define us what is smart working in profession. And also a question that what is the thin line difference between smart working and hard working?
That is definitely an interesting question. So many times we work hard. We say that we work hard. So I will give an example. Now the exams are happening in the colleges in various platforms, and you are given a syllabus. Say like 6 units, and I often say this to my students in the psychology class that there are students who wake up in the morning and go on the top of the terrace and read out their lessons, and the entire neighborhood studies the topic. But when it comes to the examination, the child doesn't remember anything. Did not the child work hard? Yes, he or she was working hard. They were reading it loud, and the entire family was so convinced. Oh my God, look at my child. She is doing an amazing job. Every morning she wakes up at 4:30 and reads out the entire content, and probably even grandma can write the examination, clear the test. But then she or he doesn't clear it because he or she was in smart. So making things going to the brain, to the heart, is something called being smart. And how can you reach it? There is no shortcut. You have to find a way of your own way of working it out. And in psychology, we say there is a context-dependent memory and state-dependent memory, which says, if you have a habit, students, if you have a habit of learning things at your home, going to your bedroom and just laying down on the bed and reading it out and assuming that I'm going to study it, and it may be a very peaceful place that you can just be in your bedroom and in your own bed and study. But when it comes to recollection and retrieval, you don't have that bed available. So the context of your learning affects your retrieval as well. Similarly, some people have the habit of keeping themselves awake by putting their feet in a tumbler of water. Sometimes I myself, I even done that while I was a child in studying at the 9th and 10th grade. Somebody told me, like, if you feel sleepy, put your feet on a tumbler of water and you can keep yourself awake. But later when I learned the subject, I learned that, okay, that sort of a learning would expect you the retrieval making easier when you have that context situation available. Similarly, somebody who wanted to keep themselves awake by drinking a lot of caffeine, a lot of coffee, they drink mugs and mugs of coffee, they say, yeah, I'm awake. But then it is sort of intoxicating your system, caffeinating your system, and then you need probably a cup of tea, a mug of tea with you, they say, when you are writing examination as well. But how many colleges would provide that? I am afraid. So that is being smart and being hard, in my own words.
Thank you, Father. And one more question. That is, a student says that they've been attending motivational classes, but sometime after that, it fades away from the mind. So how to remember or keep it in the memory to follow?
That is perfect. Yeah, that's a very very good inquiry. See, all of us go through a lot of motivational speeches, and I'm a Catholic priest. Every Sunday, I go to church and preach to the people, and myself, either as a believer or as a preacher, would meet the same people with the same troubles again and again and again. And, and I would say, like, probably none of our speeches are ever made an impact in the lives of the people. But then there is a different way of looking at that as well. See, we are eating our food from when we were babies. Our mothers were nurturing us, providing us the milk and the liquids and the food and everything. Was there any day that you said, you know what, I don't see a growth in me, I'm not growing? You look at my dad. Dad is like 100 kilograms and I'm only 4.5 or 8.5. Why should I eat? We don't stop doing that, even though there is no exponential and a huge difference in a single day, but we still do what we are doing every day, listening to positive thoughts, motivational speeches. And this is not something that you are going to by heart. I'm not expecting every child to say, oh my God, oh, that was a wonderful session, I'm going to remember the whole entire story. No. Tomorrow you're going to attend another session. yet another session probably or from YouTube or maybe from other sources and your own teachers. And about education, one definition of education which I love the most is by Albert Einstein, who said that education is something that stays with you after you forgetting everything that you learned in your schools or colleges. Say, for example, the the logarithm table that you had, and all the mathematical formulas that you learned, and all the chemical formulas in chemistry or other electronics and statistics and physics and everything that you forget. But if something stays with you, it must be definitely the value system, the disciplining. That is education. So the child or the person who asked, now I'm sure that you're going to forget, and you should forget, but when there will be something staying with you, that will take you to that great heights.
Father, last question for the day for you. That is, should we keep changing our skills which we adopt for the present life?
We have to update ourselves. Absolutely, yes. It is not rather changing, it is updating. It is called the skilling, upskilling, and reskilling. So a child who is good at cycling, pedaling the cycle, the earlier days, the cycle had even an extra two wheels on the side because parents make sure that the children don't fall. And the moment you learn that cycling, you are like, wow, I've done this. It's a great feel of achievement. But that same child, after 15 years, given the same cycle by the parent, would that child be happy doing it? No, because that cycle has grown up to a bike, a Duke or an Enfield of any kind, and maybe it's four-wheeler, and if possible, even become a pilot. So you're not actually deleting what you've learned. You're upgrading yourself. So skilling, reskilling, and upskilling is what is happening there. So none of your skills you should eliminate. Let that be there. One day that will be coupled with another sort of exposure and expertise that you have, which will make you a better person.
Thank you, Father, for that extraordinary session. And
Thank
that
you.
those skill training, like how to train your mind by using the skills which you have given us, definitely would be helping the students to come out with flying colors. Gratitude is the single most important ingredient to living a successful and a fulfilled life. Before we roll down the screen, it's time for us to render our sincere gratitude to all those who has joined us today to make this intellectual session a grand success. Now, I request Professor Prasanna Viraju, Managing Trustee, Bengaluru Law College, to propose vote of thanks.
Vote of thanks, Baro.
Good afternoon to everyone. It's a great honor for me to propose a vote of thanks to everyone, all the dignitaries present here, the chief guests, and all the participants who are present here. What a session, what a wonderful workshop it was, a guidance to all the law students. It's possible by this wonderful workshop. I envy the students who have really got this session, because I didn't get it when I graduated. This is possible just because our vision of our beloved Vice Chancellor Sir, Sri Dr. Ishwar Bhatt Sir, who's made this happen. He thinks about his students, not just imparting the knowledge of law, but also giving them a prospects of making their career in their life. What a wonderful thought for such a wonderful person who has taken this initiative with the team of the learned scholars like G.V. Patil Sir, Dharmagowdan Madam, and the Registrar of KSLU, Zubair Sir, Hitangi Sir, and nevertheless Khalid Sir, who were instrumental in making this workshop. And also it is seen in evidence that is a successful workshop which has already happened with our distinguished guests, fabulous speeches by our great uh, uh, Justice Ramon sir on communication. Sir, as you told, in communication, like the main important is the listening. So, but 1,050 participants are present here and all were attentive to your lecture. You attracted everyone. Our eyes was glued on your talk, motivational talk, which really gave the fulfillment of the communication, which will make each and every student to adapt this particular communication skill to be a successful lawyer or a law faculty in any part of the world. So I thank you, sir, for your wonderful speech, which has made everyone here really motivated and enriched with your knowledge, sir. Thank you very much, sir. On behalf of Lawrence Educational Trust and Bangalore Law College and all the participants present here from all the 21 colleges, I thank you once again, sir. Next, distinguished speaker, a scholar, a master, Sri Professor Venkatrao sir, who was part of the National Law School, who himself is an academician. He knows the mind of the students, who knows for past 42 years he has taught. He knows what students require and what is the important factors for him to take up a career. And it was a right choice that he was chosen to speak on this guidance on career. So he has wonderfully, as we started, I thought only the ocean of opportunity for a law student is there, but he opened up and told us there is a galaxy of opportunity for all the law students. That is a great thing which he expressed of a law student can get or do whatever beyond this earth. That is, even the space law is now there, the cyber law is there, and even to the international level, we all can impart or render our service in the faculty of law. The third person, the eminent Reverend Father Emmanuel sir, I thank you, sir. Being a psychologist, you could understand the psychology of a student, and also you can really tell like where or which are the factors a student can adapt to make his career in his life. The personality developments which you have told us is enriching us, and also like I think that all the students who are now going to clear their final years will take your advice, all the points, and make it a grand success in their own lives. The Vice Chancellor, sir, so thank you once again to giving us an opportunity. So you are a factor of inspiration for all the institutions, law institutions. So I thank you and your team, sir, for giving all the opportunities to Bangalore Law College and all the students of 21 colleges who have been participating here. I thank all the principals here of the 21 colleges and the students, all the faculty members of the 21 colleges who are present here and made this great success. I think all the points, or the knowledge which was given by all the distinguished guests will be adapted in their lives. It is not only to the students, as even I took so many notes that it could improve me. If at all, if that knowledge was given to me when I was a budding graduate, I think I would have made a difference in my life. So I thank once again for all this, and I thank Sri Justice Gopal sir, who is present here to grace the occasion in blessing us. Thank you, sir, for being with us. And I thank Professor uh, Shiv Prasad sir for selecting the appropriate guests for this wonderful workshop, and he has made it a success. I thank my principal and her dynamic team for organizing a communication between the KSLU and the Bangalore University to see that there is no interruption and a smooth flow of all this communication happens. So I thank the students of Bangalore College and all the students here who has been a part of this wonderful workshop. Thank you all. But with the last note, we will place it on record and cherish this forever. Thanks everyone. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. We also thank you for all your extended support. Before we sign out, the feedback forms are available in the chat box. Kindly give your valuable feedback for further improvements in the intellectual sessions in the future. Thank you. Stay safe and good day.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for wonderful sessions.
Yes.